The people of Central and Eastern Europe have had more than their share of hardship. As victims of the most destructive ideologies history has ever known, these historically Christian nations have, just during the 20th century, lost millions to war, to famine, and more recently, to abortion. Confronted now with the very real threat of demographic collapse, Christian and secular leaders are working together to take concrete steps in law and in society to return to their traditional roots and to rebuild respect for life and family. In Hungary and Poland, we find two nations whose people, despite their differing language and traditions, have stood together against the oppressive regimes of the 20th century, and today stand together in attempting to return to a love for life and family. Their courageous attempts to protect life and family through the law are being watched closely by their neighbors in Central and Eastern Europe and by disapproving powers in the European Union. But their example is one from which we can all learn and in which we can all find hope.
Central and Eastern Europe is unique. It's practically the only region in the world that was overrun by the two major ideologies of the 20th century. Nazi Germany ran over the whole region, and then the Soviet Union and the communists ran over the whole region in the other direction and stayed for generations. And that had huge demographic impacts. Human rights have been abused in this region more than almost anywhere else in the world. And the family has been impacted by that. Instability, not knowing what the future is going to bring, is a terrible situation for having children. And the fact that abortion on demand was legal throughout the area made people basically decide not to have children. And so some of the lowest birth rates in the world occur in Central and Eastern Europe. These countries are in crisis. They need to do something radical to move away from the culture of death. And if they don't, then they're going to disappear. And this has happened in the past. I mean, the Roman Empire fell because the citizens of the Roman Empire refused to have children. And the foreign barbarians took over the Roman Empire. In the Middle East, the Hittites no longer exist. The Canaanites no longer exist. Carthage was destroyed by the Romans. What happened to all those cultures? Well, they were cultures of death. They had human sacrifice, they didn't value children, and they were wiped off the face of the earth.
As the world's population surpasses 7 billion, many voices in the media and in special interest groups have warned of the dangers of overpopulation, of its effects on the environment and on our sustainability as a people. But while the world population is indeed still growing, the rate of growth is slowing dramatically. In many nations, the problem has become one of falling population, a trend which threatens both those social structures that assume a growing population and the continued existence of these cultures.
The population of the planet has reached 7 billion people, and it's the first time in history that there were so many people on the Earth. And that is actually a good thing. I mean, more people on Earth is more resources.
The media likes to direct your attention, to these large congregations of people and say, look, see, we are overpopulated. We have too many people. And yet, what they don't say is what's caused this difficulty in humanity? What's caused all these issues? Taking advantage of what John Paul II always said, that the greatest resource is humanity. It's the human person.
And how much do human beings contribute? There's a very old phrase, and I really loved it, but people were saying, praying to God and saying, why don't you send us, someone to cure AIDS? And why don't you send us someone to cure cancer, etc.? And the answer comes back from God and says, I did, but you aborted them. And it's very true. I mean, we are rejecting the blessing of children. As a global human population, there's a fear of children, there's a fear of family.
In a way, you have to re-educate people on the value of family living. So the reason why they're not having children is because we've taught them there's no value in children. We've taught them there's no value in family living. So in a way, you're having to re-educate people what it means to have one man married to one woman and what it means to be open to life.
This negative attitude toward family can clearly be seen in the population declines of several countries throughout Europe, and the numbers cannot be disputed. For a number of years, the birth rates of these countries have fallen tragically short of those necessary to sustain their populations, and their respective total fertility rates indicate a dangerous trend among them.
The total fertility rate is the number of children that are born every year, on average. And if your country does not have at least 2.1 with a modern health system, so at least over 2 children per family, on average, your society is going to age and eventually disappear. What we have today around the world are many, many countries below this replacement fertility rate, with less than 2 children per family. In Central and Eastern Europe, we have some of the lowest fertility rates in the world. We're talking about 1.3, 1.2, 1.4 children per family. I mean, so a very, very low rate of children and a high rate of abortions. So you have more abortions than births taking place throughout this region. But if you look at the fertility rates throughout all the former communist countries, they're all excruciatingly low. And it's really a legacy of communism.
We see now today where people are actually being encouraged not only to have children, but given financial assistance to have children. Maybe tax incentives, or in some cases maybe even giving them cash to encourage them, please have children. But it's interesting that we're at that point where people have to be told or to be encouraged to have a child. You would think something so natural to the love of husband and wife would be so naturally open to life, but has become closed to life because of policy and because of these issues.
It's interesting to see that it's a godless ideology. The godless ideology of communism brings abortion on demand. And if you look around the world today, the countries with the worst abortion records are still the communist countries. Communist China, communist Cuba, North Korea has a horrific abortion issue. So communism and abortion are very close friends. I mean, they really go well together. It's the same vision, the same twisted vision of the human person.
But it's ironically this twisted vision, or rather their prolonged exposure to its effects, that has given the people of this region an openness to the message of life that may not be as prevalent in other developed nations.
The abortion problem here, which is severe, at least is not marked by all the doublespeak. In the US and Canada, they don't even talk about abortion. The feminists talk about choice, we're pro-choice. And then they refer to it as a right, as a woman's achievement. We legalized abortion in our countries. This was a great moment for women, When you're in Central and Eastern Europe, women here know that abortion is not liberating. They know that abortion is not a right. They know that abortion hurts women, and they know that it is imposed upon them by others, that it's not something that they choose for themselves. It's rather something that is forced upon them. And of course, abortion was forced throughout Central and Eastern Europe. All the former communist countries had abortion imposed upon them by their totalitarian rulers.
Actually, this is the first time in modern times when abortion was legal in the world. It was announced by Lenin.
Right after the Bolshevik Revolution, as soon as Lenin had control of Russia, in 1920, he legalizes abortion. And he proclaims that he wants to destroy the family. And legalizing abortion, having a huge sort of sexual revolution, is the way to do it. To break down the old taboos, the old society, and create the new socialist man, the new socialist woman.
They tried to destroy the family, but very quickly they realized that the only thing they'll do is fill orphanages with children. So they backed out from that idea, and they reinstated the family as a contract between one man and one woman.
So what happened in Russia? They legalized abortion, and they were having so many abortions, the country was almost disappearing. I mean, the population was crashing. On top of that, of course, they had all the different purges, all the different massacres, all the different starvations, the planned starvations of the Ukrainians and so many others throughout the Soviet Union. So actually, Joseph Stalin who was no great pro-lifer, let me tell you, he actually bans abortion in the Soviet Union. And he says, look, we can't afford this. Abortion is going to kill us. And so during the Stalin period, there's actually no legal abortion in Russia. And it was interesting to see that abortion came right back in with Khrushchev and then lasted all the way through the end of the Soviet era and then into the present. However, Russia has a demographic issue. I mean, they have literally lost millions of people today because more people are dying than being born. There are over 400,000 people a year dying more than being born. So Russia is literally disappearing, and there are vast stretches of this huge, the largest country in the world is Russia. Vast stretches of the country that are absolutely empty, where the villages have just been abandoned because there are no more children, no more women, no more men.
There's nobody on the villages. I saw in my eyes. It's 1, 2, 3 old persons in the small wooden houses and nobody there. Because the people goes where it's easier. And the nation is in danger when they have no children.
Everybody has just left to go to the cities because life is so hard in these areas, and there's literally no population to take their place. Well, during the Soviet era, abortion was really used as birth control. They didn't have the pill, they didn't have birth control technologies, they just said, okay, take care of the problem. And the whole society had no human rights. I mean, the communist vision, gave the individual almost no protection. You were either a servant of the state or you were an enemy of the state. And if you were an enemy of the state, you were eliminated. Abortion was in that context. Okay, so children are inconvenient. Therefore, we will have abortion. And there was also this politics, right? In the communist vision was kind of modern in a way. I mean, they wanted all the women to work. They didn't want to have any women at home raising children. And so with that vision, right, all the men have to go to work and all the women as well.
Women were the persons who were extracted from the family, and they had to go to factory and to become policemen and teachers and so on and so on.
For women to be available for the workforce, they had to have abortions so they didn't have so many children. And so that was really part of the politics, part of the state planning, if you will, of the Soviet Union and of the communist countries in general.
But those countries, while still maintaining many of the policies put in place during the communist era, have been forced to reckon with their long-term effects and are now seeking alternatives that will help them reverse the demographic damage already done.
There's even a move on now to, roll back the old communist laws and to go back to respecting life. Certainly Poland has already done this, but there have been moves in countries throughout the region, in Lithuania and Russia and Ukraine, Slovakia, Croatia. All these countries, if you will, are on the cusp of moving against abortion. They're trying to turn back the clock to a more pro-life past before the communists imposed abortion on them.
It's not just turning back their abortion laws or turning back the laws that have been entrenched within them from communist occupation, Nazi occupation, but recognizing that the dignity of the person is a right not given by government, it's not given by a policy, it comes to them from Almighty God. And so it's recognizing that they must bring to the people, if you will, a re-evangelization, because so many people have forgotten that it's not government that tells them you can have this or have that. That when it comes to inalienable rights, to freedom, to dignity, to the ability to find work and to have work, to provide for your family, these come from being a child of God and come from the person who is Jesus Christ.
Hungary, a country with a rich Catholic Christian heritage, suffered greatly at the hands of the communists, and although weakened by decades of oppression, Hungary never truly lost the faith on which the nation was founded.
Hungarian is a very unique nation in the middle of Europe,
and we have a very long and very valuable past heritage.
We must always take into consideration the rich heritage of their Christian faith, which goes back over 1,000 years. And it was that rich heritage that guided the people of Hungary for all these years up until the time of the Nazi invasion, and then of course the Russian occupation and the introduction of communism. But the people never lost their Christian heritage, their Christian root.
Our ancestors respected very much life, respected very much the life-giving mother, the life-giving father, which means that the Hungarian culture was based on respect of a Christian value.
The greatest obstacle on that path came when the country fell to Soviet occupation, and though they lost their sovereignty, the Hungarian people never lost their hope.
As the Soviets occupied Hungary in 1945, they brought their communist supporters as well. And this communist party, ruled by Stalinist Hungarian leaders, made a kind of terror state of originally Christian Hungary. The Communist Party hunted and killed everybody who were against them. And this was the reason why in 1956 there was a Hungarian revolution against this rule. And this date is very important because in June the 1st of 1956 there was a new law. The new law was the legalization of abortion in Hungary.
The legalization of abortion led to this rebellion. Cardinal Mindszenty, who was the Archbishop of Budapest, mentioned on the radio, we have to defend the Hungarians in the womb. We have to defend our country against the communist oppression, and particularly this oppression against our children.
After a very short period of the victory of the Hungarian Revolution, the communists came again and killed the Hungarian freedom fighters. Some part of the freedom fighters had to go abroad, the other part was oppressed or jailed.
Part of this, brief rebellion that was crushed with Soviet tanks was about standing up for life, standing up for unborn, preborn life. The vision of the Hungarian people in their resistance to communism was also that we should resist abortion.
But the resistance was to be short-lived, and with time, Hungarian doctors were forced into compliance with Soviet abortion mandates.
Hungarian doctors had the feeling that they had the duty to kill the Hungarian babies, saying that it's a big burden for the women, so it was a false statement, and they killed during this period of, we say, abortion dictatorship, more than 6 million Hungarian unborn babies.
The people of Hungary are quite familiar with the war against the family and against children. They lived it for 60 years. And as a result, they have come to realize what consequence that has caused. Their own life, their own livelihood, their own culture, their own society is collapsing in front of them.
This nation is dying. Dying because women cannot bring to term their babies. The result is that we are missing, very much missing, 6 million Hungarian citizens. Killed already in the womb, killed at the time when they were ready to help this nation to survive.
Their country is dying. And why is it dying? Because family is disintegrating, children are very few and far between. It's having both an economic impact, a social impact. These are intimately connected, to the demise of the value of family and the openness to children. So when we break those down, inevitably the society collapses or has the potential to collapse. So the people of Hungary and their government recognize they must intervene.
Last spring there was a new government voted by majority of the Hungarian nation, and we do think that this new option for the nation offers for us lots of opportunities in order to change the situation.
And the situation is changing, most notably in the form of a new Hungarian constitution, the Easter Constitution, so named for its passage by Parliament in Easter of 2011. It is the country's first constitution since communist rule, and one which upholds the value and dignity of the family and of the unborn.
Hungary's new constitution, which came into force January 1st, 2012, defends life from the first moment of conception. And this is the first post-communist constitution in Hungary. So prior to this, they've been under the old communist laws, the old communist constitution. And what they're doing with this new constitution is moving in a pro-family, pro-life direction.
The Easter Constitution originates in the people recognizing that something has to change. And even though the EU is attempting to pressure them in the opposite direction, at least as of this moment, our brothers and sisters in Hungary are saying, no, we will not follow that path. We are definitely European. Yes, we recognize this, but we are Christian. And as Christians, we are guided by these principles that promote the dignity of life, that uphold the dignity of marriage.
So now we think that it's time to change the tide and to begin a new wave and a new period of life, showing the Hungarians that it's time to wake up. Otherwise, we really will disappear from the map of Europe, from the map of the world. The question is whether the politicians are ready to cooperate with us.
És nagy biztonságot ad, hogy nálunk az alaptörvényt módosítani csak 2/3 lehet, és újra 2/3 többséget belátható időn belül, tehát 10-20 éven belül biztos, hogy senki nem fog szerezni. Magyarul ezek az értékek kőbe vannak vésve.
God bless the Hungarians. Imagine when other people read this. What are they saying? Well, the Hungarian parliament is saying exactly what they mean, that their constitution and their law and their understanding of their law and the dignity of the family and the promotion of the dignity of children and the promotion of a culture of life within their constitution now begins with the simple words, God bless the Hungarians. What follows are declaration after declaration of pride in Hungarian culture and identity, and it is so evidently Christian. We hold that human existence is based on human dignity. We hold that individual freedom can only be complete in cooperation with others. We hold that the family constitutes the principal framework of our coexistence, and that our fundamental cohesive values are fidelity, faith, and love. We hold that we have a general duty to help the vulnerable and the poor. Recognizing these four principles, one can't help but notice that they are deeply Christian, deeply Catholic. And when you consider the craziness of the EU and many others promoting their agendas, this agenda is very clear and it makes logical sense. When you promote the dignity of the family, you sustain that dignity by promoting law that will protect it from harm, and you protect the vulnerable and the poor, especially the unborn child, the preborn child in the womb, then your society speaks clearly that this is what we believe to be true. This is what we believe to be a culture of life. And that effect is going to be a sustainable culture and have an influence on other nations as well.
But though the language of the Easter Constitution may itself be reverential of life, it does not necessarily guarantee compliance from all levels of government.
What we see in Hungary, really, is the politicians thinking we can have it both ways. We can have beautiful pro-life human rights language in our Constitution and at the same time allow abortion to go on as usual. But the people of Hungary are not going to stand for that. And there are actually quite a few very good politicians who are also going to push very hard to change those laws once they're declared unconstitutional.
And that's why we are trying to support political leaders and say, yes, you're doing a great job. We should celebrate this constitution and we will stay behind you. We also want to find people from outside to protect this constitution. That's why we are in contact with Malta, with Poland, with Ireland, with Liechtenstein, and with other political leaders who support Christian values.
Hungary, Poland also has a strong Christian heritage and fought tirelessly against its oppressors in the 20th century. Indeed, Poland is the first nation in the world to significantly restrict abortion after it had already been widely practiced. Almost 2 decades after this significant event, Poland enjoys very low abortion rates and a culture rooted in and informed by its Catholic heritage. But its hard-won freedoms came at a heavy price.
After the Second World War, it wasn't freedom for us. The Polish people were still under occupation. This time it was the Bolshevik occupation. The communists ruled in Poland for quite some time, and in 1956 they introduced abortion law, which allowed abortion for social reasons, which means practically on demand. And since that time, our pro-lifers started to be quite active. We fought the communism as much as we could. There wasn't a single decade where there wouldn't be some kind of strike or uprising where we tried to win our freedom. But actually, the first breakthrough came when the news came over Vatican radio that Cardinal Wojtyła was elected the new Pope. It didn't take long for the Pope to visit Poland for the first time.
In June of 1979, John Paul II, on his first visit to Poland, truly it did ignite a fire, because the people of Poland had been so overshadowed by Nazism and communism that people just hungered for hope, hungered for courage, and the Holy Father just embodied all of it for them and just lit a fire that could not be extinguished.
I remember the historic words he said during the sermon when he prayed, "May the Spirit come upon this earth." And then he pointed out this earth. And we all knew what that meant. He wanted us to be renewed. We were all moved, crying, some of us. He taught us, carry the burdens of one another. He united us. We felt our strength, and I think that caused the biggest fear among the communists. They knew that now it is only a problem of time. Sooner or later, all the Polish people will be so united with the church that they will have no chance of ruling us. And, well, we had to wait another 10 years. In the meantime, labor union solidarity was started.
When the economy began to disintegrate in Poland and the unions began to recognize what was happening, there was this great move by Lech Walesa that came together and recognized that they must stand against this system. They must stand in solidarity, and thus the name solidarity became used and became that key word that united the people on the political front, but it was all being guided by the spiritual.
We had the martial law, a lot of persecution, and then we finally regained freedom. And when that happened, one of the first things we wanted to do is protect all the innocent ones. Fight to regain our dignity and to protect every life from the moment of conception until natural death.
Now, Poland changed the law for pro-life. So abortion on demand and abortion on social reasons is forbidden in Poland. It is a big success.
Statistically speaking, in the worst time, it was something like 200 to 170,000 abortions annually. And in the first year when abortion was delegalized, it was 777. And now it's much less annually every year.
But it doesn't end with the severe legal restriction of abortion. The culture of the Polish people, though now threatened by outside forces, remains fully centered on the importance of family and a respect for life and faith in each of its many aspects.
In the schools, in the public schools, they're open to the message. You can go in, get permission from the director of the public school, go in there and provide a pro-life, pro-chastity message. You can mention God in the public schools. You can't do this in many other countries in the world. I mean, they have crucifixes on the walls in their schools. And they have catechism being taught to the children by the local parish priest in the public schools. This is an incredible opportunity. And it's something that Central and Eastern Europe has, and it's something that we have been really working together with to help them in the future. We actually have a program in Poland where we are providing family life education, chastity education throughout the country. We've provided these different models that show the development of the child, and these are used in the public schools throughout the country. So young people are growing up with this pro-life vision. And I've been all over Central and Eastern Europe, and in all these countries, you can get access to the schools. You can actually teach the teachers, reach the children. And so Human Life International does this, and it's a great impact for the future. And in fact, we see that. I mean, young people are much more pro-life than older people who've been indoctrinated with the old communist ideology. But the new generation is open to new ideas, and the schools and the structures are open. And so we really kind of fill that void, we fill that opportunity with all of our pro-life educational materials.
Now majority is on our side. It is also our hope. And Poland is Catholic country, so we believe to Holy Father Benedict, and especially our Polish John Paul II. Now it is very important for us because we may pray through him to God, and his image, his photos are everywhere in our churches, in our pockets, in our hearts.
But the influence of their patron and pontiff has, since the fall of communism, been threatened by another influence, that of the West, and of all the trappings of a largely secular, consumeristic society.
With the fall of communism, the abortion regimes just kind of continued right on. It was almost like communism leaves, and then the West arrives, and the West is all legalized abortion, and so that's the modern thing, so that's the one thing that we don't change.
When we regained independence with the market economy, with all the advertisements and so on, this is an education that teaches people to consume. This is when real consumeristic society started. People wanted to reconnect themselves to the Western culture. And instead, we've been connected to the sewage. Pornography came first, and new magazines for young people showed up, where in the magazines they promoted promiscuity, they promoted all the evils of the West you can think of. And this is a process of demoralization which is affecting our young people for the last 20 years, which means a whole generation.
The former communist countries that are now in the European Union, they're doing better in terms of economics. They're becoming prosperous. Now they're getting infected with materialism. So there's this phrase that was used in Hungary, kicsi or kucsi.
Kicsi means baby, kocsi means car. So either you choose the child, or you can live better, you can do career, and you can have, of course, material goods like car, like flat, like luxury trips in abroad, and so on.
Young people are starting to be more egoistic. They're losing the Christian roots sometimes, and they're concentrating too much on obtaining wealth.
They're deciding on material benefits rather than another child. And that's kind of a spiritual poverty. The idea that Mother Teresa of Calcutta used to say, children are a blessing. How can there be too many children? It's like there are too many flowers. Well, it's true, but if you have a strictly materialist perspective, another child is another burden, another child is less vacation time, less, disposable income, etc. And people today in the modern world are less and less willing to make that sacrifice for the next generation.
It is an anti-life mentality which doesn't have anything to do with biology anymore. It's in the head. People are just anti-life, anti-baby. And they don't think about the future. They just think about themselves.
But perhaps more thought should be given to the future, since nothing less than the future is at stake. As many Eastern European nations continue to dwindle in number, Their populations grow older, and without an adequate workforce stepping in to replace them as they retire, the aged and disabled risk becoming seen as a burden and are in danger of falling victim to euthanasia.
Certainly in Central and Eastern Europe, people have not been born. They have been below replacement fertility for over 30, 40 years. Now, if people have not been born for that long period of time, you're looking at no workers. A lot of people retiring and nobody taking their place. And who's going to pay the pensions? And that's what's really going on with the economic crisis in Europe. Their economic sluggishness is in some large measure due to the fact that they have so few people working and so many people retiring. And so their whole economies are skewed in the sort of consumerism aspect of things, paying out pensions, but not in productive individuals, productive workers. Central and Eastern European countries do not have the immigrants that Western European countries have. They're poor countries. I mean, if you walk around in Poland, you're not going to see many people from other countries. Same is true in Russia. Same is true as Hungary. In Croatia, all these former communist countries are poor enough that their young people are actually going elsewhere to work.
The young people that could have children, they're immigrating. And they're in the statistics of other nations because they give birth to their babies in England, in Spain, and Germany, and other places.
Some of this is temporary immigration for work, but some of it is permanent immigration, and they're just going away. They're going to the U.S., they're going elsewhere. And so what's going to happen in these countries? Their young people are leaving, their young people are not being born, and their elderly people are staying there and collecting pensions. I mean, it's basically a recipe for euthanasia.
The threat of euthanasia is a very real one, and a future where the aged are discarded is a distinct possibility for many countries. But there is work being done to combat the culture of death and reestablish a respect for life at every stage, from conception to natural death. From its base in pro-life Poland, Human Life International is able to serve the communities of many forgotten nations, neglected countries whose causes may have appeared to many as lost.
We concentrate mainly on education. So everything starting from explaining to people about the fetal development, the dignity of human person, also natural family planning, what is contraceptive mentality and why it destroys the husband and wife relationship, what is chastity before marriage, what is chastity in marriage. We train pro-life leaders. We try to teach people how to break away from the death culture, from the contraceptive mentality.
We trained leaders. For example, our project is to prepare a very small model. We say small journey, mały Jaś in Polish. It is 10 weeks in the womb model, and we dream to take to everybody, not only in Poland. We send these models also to our friends to the east, to Russia, to Ukraine, to Białorussia, to Lithuania, Latvia, Łotwa, and I was in Kazakhstan last month. So for our leaders, we trained leaders there. These materials are very, very needed.
Poland and Russia have had a very difficult, 500 years. The relationship between Poland and Russia has never been good. They've always been fighting each other. Now, when you send a Polish person into Russia, and this Polish person goes and speaks to a Russian audience and says, I'm from Poland, and I love your children. I want Russian babies to be born. The Russian people in the audience, their jaws drop. They're like, here is this foreigner from a country that is a traditional enemy of ours, a country that we've abused in the past, and they say that they love our children. They love our children more than we love our children. That makes a huge impact. And people in that country are like, wow, okay, we should really take care of this problem. We should move forward and create pro-family policies, pro-child policies.
We traveled 2,000 kilometers from one to another village in Kazakhstan. And we met people in these places. But this knowledge is very needed for them. The women, especially women, has a lot of questions. They had problems with positive treatment, medical treatment. on the contraception and abortion is not enough for them. They need knowledge, they need also good gynecologist. And we trained gynecologists. We have special courses, and our friends, not only from Poland, also from Russia, goes from one place to another and train such people. And then they organized family centers in their parishes and their family center, maybe also in medical staff and hospital.
As foreigners going into other countries, you can have a bigger impact. If you say, look, I've traveled 2,000 miles to come here with this message, people say, wow, it must be an important message because you traveled so far. You took your time to come here. And we get on national television.
We also give interviews in the media, on television. Eva's office is very often a consultant to journalists who know that if something pro-life is happening anywhere in the world, they can always turn to us for extra information. And winning the confidence of journalists, it's a very important thing, we feel. We always try to help them as much as we can.
Obviously, the people in the countries have to take care of their problems. You can't solve the problems from abroad. But what Human Life International does, in a way, as pro-life missionaries, we go into these countries and we're catalysts. We go there and we point to the issues and we provide materials, we provide stimulus. It's almost like being a little bit of yeast in the dough to help everything blossom, everything grow forward. And of course, we work with the church. We go where the Catholic Church is, we support the Catholic Church's activity, which is doing the exact same thing. Missionaries there to help these cultures to recover from all the problems that they're facing.
So it is big work, big work, and it is going, because I think one leaflet is sometimes very important. One newspaper is more important, but in the future, it's more important what is in the heart and what is in the brain.
On every level, Human Life International is engaged in promoting the culture of life around the world. And even though sometimes we may meet difficulty, we may not accomplish what we are out to accomplish in that moment, we don't give up our work. We don't stop what we're doing. We keep promoting it, we keep preaching it, we keep teaching it, and we keep empowering people to continue their work.
As an example of the kind of healthcare that can arise from a pro-life culture, Human Life International points to women's hospitals in Poland that take a fresh approach to prenatal and obstetric care. It's a model that can serve as an example to reintroduce the pro-life mentality to the medical community at large.
What we've seen here in Poland is a wonderful new approach to healthcare. Catholic healthcare, hospitals that help women as opposed to giving them abortion, giving them contraception, sterilization.
Here in this hospital, we are treating the babies which normally in the other part of the Europe, they would be killed. For example, in United Kingdom, if the woman came to the hospital and they found out during the ultrasound that the baby has a congenital disease, the first advice which is given to the woman is just to get the abortion. And here in Poland, it's absolutely curable, and we cure this baby. So we are leading the pregnancy, and we are helping the mother, and in the same time, we're preparing the after-delivery operation. We are in the contact with the surgeons, and they are prepared for the baby.
If a child is handicapped, you don't abort that child, you treat that child. You help the mother, you help the child. You give health care that is actually positive, that is actually caring and compassionate.
Every woman which needs a help can find a help here. We have a lot of the nun as a patient. Why they are coming here? Because if they are going to the normal hospital, they are treating a little bit differently. But still, the nun is the woman, and if she has the gynecological problem, she needs a treatment as the normal woman. So because of that, we gave them the treatment and also gave them more privacy and more understanding, because you know that they need it more than the normal patient.
You want to be able to provide the best medical care, but the best medical care without love behind it is nothing. You really need to have high professional standards and at the same time compassion. Really treat people well.
This kind of the hospital, they are going to be a future, and not only the future for Poland, but I think that for the whole world. We are hoping, and the pregnant woman, pregnant with the problem, they are looking for the hope. So they will find us, they will tell the other about that we exist and that we can help.
What you see a lot, in modern healthcare is people going for money, and they're just trying to exploit people for as much money as they can, and they're trying to the quick solution, the quick fix. So all these culture of death solutions are quick solutions. Kill the baby, no problem. Treating the baby is a little bit harder, but of course it brings life.
We are choosing the path which is more difficult, but give more options. And I think that our way of thinking, our way of working, our way of treatment, it will spread. It will spread because the women will see the difference.
To see the difference in the larger picture, though, requires commitment to the work, and much yet remains to be done. It is the responsibility not just of the Polish, the Hungarians, or even other Eastern Europeans. It is a charge to everyone who believes in the cause and is concerned for the future of society as a whole, irrespective of geographical boundaries, to help in any way possible and to remain vigilant until the culture of death has been defeated.
This region, this part of Europe, needs missionaries because of the damages caused by the communists, because of the damages of the past decades. We have lost a lot.
Spreading the gospel of life is simply bringing more and more people to God, really. And I feel it's a struggle to save as many souls as possible.
We have to kneel down and pray for the conversion of hearts. A prayer from each heart, from each family, from each parish, from each diocese, that the Holy Spirit will come from above and will destroy these walls of evil.
All the evils of the world today, each evil is a way that people fall, and we have to help them to get up and go in the direction of light.
And while the work may be tiring and the odds stacked in the opposition's favor, it's important not to lose hope, not to give up, as the examples of Poland and Hungary have proven.
We dream about changes, but for example, I don't believe that it is possible. So I was born after the Second World War, and our generation had no possibility for changes. So we don't believe that it is possible to change also for pro-life, because we had abortion practically on demand from 1956 in Poland. I said to God, I have problems. I do not believe that it is possible to change, that freedom is possible in my country.
I have to admit, my faith was not strong enough. During the communist times, I didn't think that anything would change. But the people that were praying, tried to convince me that the power of the prayer is great. But when all the changes came, I know they were right, not me.
Under the communist era, nobody had any hope. They thought, wow, there's no way to stop this problem. There's no way that we can end this communist regime. They have nuclear weapons, they have tanks. I mean, this evil is just impossible to fight. And many people think that abortion is kind of that strong. There's no way to stop abortion. It's like this enormous mass of people and money, and there's just no way to end it. But that's not true. With God, everything is possible. And we've seen it in Poland. They were able to reverse the law here, and other countries are moving in that direction.
If we think about Poland, we had abortion there for 35 years, and after a long time of people prayed there and doing the grassroots work for the pro-life movements, 100,000 children are saved because of the law.
You see what is now. Now it's absolutely different. So we made believe God that all changes are possible if we try and we do something to save children.
I always like to say that I'm hopeful for Central and Eastern Europe. Why? Because here you have access. Here people are interested in solutions. In many countries, you have to first convince people that there's a problem. And then once they're convinced, then you have to break down all their different barriers of resistance, etc. And then you can start working on the solutions. In Central and Eastern Europe, in the former communist countries, they know that there's a problem.
They lived it for 60 years. And as a result, they have come to realize what consequence that has caused. Their own life, their own livelihood, their own culture, their own society is collapsing in front of them.
So when I come here now in the post-communist era, I find particularly among the medical profession, right? Medical doctors do not want abortion. They don't want to be doing them, but they don't know what else to do because this is their tradition. This is what they've been doing for 60 plus years. I was in a hospital, a women's hospital, where the staff performs abortions. I mean, they do deliveries, but they also do abortions in the same hospital. We went there to give them a pro-life lecture. And I spoke to them for an hour. All the doctors, all the nurses in the hospital were gathered around, and they all participated in abortion. Gave them a pro-life lecture. At the end of it, we got a standing ovation. A standing ovation. And they said, this is wonderful. We hate to perform abortions. Please, help us in some way. We will offer you a room in this hospital to counsel every woman who's willing so that she doesn't have an abortion. And we went to the local bishop and asked, no, we have this opportunity. We're going to take advantage of this. And he said, absolutely. We'll find volunteers to go, and they have a room in the hospital to convince as many people as possible not to have abortions. Can you imagine Planned Parenthood giving you a room to counsel their clients not to have abortions?
There are indeed many reasons for hope, but it is becoming clear that our ultimate hope for Central and Eastern Europe, and for the world, if we are to regain a true culture of life, lies in the one who alone makes all things possible.
The abortion rates are actually going down around the world. Young people are more pro-life than older people. And I think there's a new pro-life generation that is rising up, and with education, with a certain amount of hard work, but certainly with a lot of prayer, we can move in the direction of a post-abortion world.
Each day we go out in love, bringing the light of Christ, it's less of darkness. We cannot lose if we do it with Him together. We have to provide the way and give the best, and it's up to Him when this huge change will come.
It's all in God's hands. We just have to be obedient to Him and do His work. I mean, He has already won. We just have to fill in the pages of history.
When the pages of tomorrow's history books are written, will they contain the demise of Russia, of Hungary, Poland, of Eastern Europe as a whole? Or will they chronicle the culture of life's triumph over the forces and ideologies that sought to destroy these countries? The future remains unwritten, but the blueprints for victory have been drawn up by the author of life itself. And it's our own adherence to these blueprints that will determine the ultimate outcome. Regardless, our concern should not be whether we are victorious, but how best we are able to serve in the fight, and never to surrender, no matter how unfavorable the odds, no matter how great the temptation.
Do I set out? Yes, to win. Fight the fight, run the race. But I know that I won't always succeed. But that should not stifle my passion, stifle my desire. Instead, it should motivate and empower me to keep going.
Even if we failed, we still have to have the good feeling that everything which we were able to do, everything has been done.
Mother Teresa, after winning the Nobel Peace Prize, when I believe it was a reporter that asked her a question, do you think your life really will have made a difference after you're gone? And she said very clearly that I never said I was out to change the world, but I was to be one drop of pure love in God's mighty ocean. But if you join me, there could be 2 drops.
We should not think in terms like being successful. We should think in terms like being fruitful. And that's always necessary that we think about the cross. It's for God, there are no shortcuts. We will go step by step, and even if we have to suffer sometimes, but step by step he will bring back the values of being pro-life, pro-family.
It depends on God the Creator, it depends on Christ, and the most important is to work and not to let die this nation, not to let die our own families, not to let die this society, and not to let die Europe.